Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to be looking at the Kislev changes in the Kingdoms and Wildlands update for SFO Grimhammer that's coming out on the 29th of September. So not a lot of changes to the factions themselves, however, we have a new Lord and a new Law of Magic. So, as you start off a campaign with any of the factions, you'll be able to pick up a Hag Mother. We have Hag Lords now with their own skill lines, their own look. They're obviously going to be based over the normal Hags, and they're going to have their own skills too. So the idea is that, if you're going to be playing as Mother Ostenkia, or if you want to just have Hags, you know, the Ungol version of the Kislevite culture, there you go. There's a few cool things about them. So the first thing is obviously if they're near patriarchs, and the same thing goes to them, there's going to be a bit of a leadership debuff, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Patriarchs aren't going to be very keen on them, but you've got a few different skills there that you can play around with. Keep in mind that I'm on a earlier build, so the release build is going to have all the full names. And as you've been able to tell, there is a brand new Law of Magic, the Law of Hags. So we're going to go into detail for them, in just a second, but the idea is you've got access to a bunch of spells that you're going to be able to play around with, and you're going to be able to do a few damage spells. They've got some heals, they've got some hexes. It's all taken from the 2nd edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay book where, there was a Kislev thing about them. Naturally, both the Hag Mother and the Law of Hags is something that we expected in Shadows of Change, but unfortunately did not get. But the ability to create custom laws has been in the Total War Warhammer scene for the modders for a while. So, we get to play around with some new spells. Oh, and just to mention, since the trait is never really shown in custom battles, the trait spell here, Resist Chaos, this triggers when casting a spell and it augments the Winds of Magic for you and decreases the Winds of Magic reserves for the enemy. This goes on for 20 seconds and has an effect range of 150 meters. So if you've got your Hag Mothers up close and personal, they're going to affect enemy spellcasters. And if you're still wondering about Mother Ostenkia, well, this is a really cool thing. So you start off with the spells that you still originally had. You've still got that lore. But as you progress through your unique skill line, that's how you'll start unlocking the Law of Hags. Effectively making her a very strong spellcaster because you'll have all the mixed lore that you already had, plus a second individual lore. That gives you so many spells to play around with, you're basically going to be a terror in the battlefield. And you still keep the fun ones like, for example, Flock of Doom, which is a pretty good spell. So we're going to start looking at the spells, and keep in mind that one of them is grayed out, don't you worry, that's actually been fixed now. But the first spell itself is going to be focused on a change. It's going to be Form of the Ancient Widow, again from the roleplay book, which is going to allow you to turn into an Ancient Widow. So as the Ancient Widow, you're not really going to be casting spells. You do have some effects, so some of the spells have turned into more of just something that will replenish over time. They won't use Winds of Magic. And the idea is she's there to do damage, and she does it very, very well. You're going to miss out on spells, but you're going to have a rather powerful melee character up front and personal, which is something that Kislev could kind of need, especially if you're going to go with all the different monsters. Kind of fits with the theme, doesn't it? I very much like this. I think it's kind of cool when stuff like this is done. And again, the power of this character is very, very noticeable. You're trading off the spells, but I've got a little bit of an example here on screen where you're taking her up against a Chaos Lord of Khorne, and she can take him out. She can actually take him out. The damage is there. No extra skill points on either side, because obviously there's a custom battle. But the damage is very, very obvious. She's good at taking out characters, single entities, which is pretty much what you expect if you've read through the whole Kislevite lore book and stuff. I'm not even using the other abilities like the, the damage spell and stuff like that. It's more of the case of just seeing how much attack power is possible, because let's be honest, you're going to need a character to be able to do a decent amount of damage, especially when you're going to be dealing with so many Dark Elves as Mother Ostenkia. You've got Malekith, and when you start pushing into everywhere, you've got to deal with a lot of Dark Elves. You want to be able to hit them hard, or if you start going down south, you want something to hit hard once you deal with Mazda Mundi. The next spell is Wasting Curses, so this one is a damage per second, but also a debuff spell. It can affect a single entity. It's best used on a single entity, better yet said, and it reduces their healing received. It also reduces their speed, increases their cooldowns. It's a multi-purpose spell which might not do that much damage, but it definitely does affect something that might have a lot of abilities. Obviously, something that's quite quick too, you want to use it against, so for example, a Herald of Sinesh, and reducing the healing received, that's going to be quite good to vampires and pretty much a lot of stuff. Yeah, I kind of like the idea of a spell that can do multiple things at once. Crippling Curse is a hex spell, which is for an area of effect. It's actually quite large, a range of 200, and it reduces leadership, accuracy, miscast chance increase, and also reduces melee attack. This is quite beastie. Again, multi-purpose. This lore is going to be useful for a lot of things. So you're going to find yourself using Hag Lords fairly often, moving them around and leading the Vanguard if you're trying to launch invasions of Orth-1 or just going deeper into the Dark Elf territories. I have found this quite useful too when you're dealing with the Lizardmen, because one thing that I did with Mother Ostankya is I pushed up forward, but I also had armies going down south into Lustria, because, you know, if you can kind of get decent footing with Ostankya, you can actually end up getting a decent amount of cash, and that means that you can really expand quite well. Healing Boons is a healing spell, as you can imagine, and it can't be used on lords and heroes, but it's really strong if you decide to use it on single entities, like, for example, the Incarnate, as it restores up to 30% of hit points. So yeah, you can have a really good heal going out for them. It also helps them with a vigor per second too. Yeah, it's got a long duration. 60 seconds is pretty high. You can also use it on other stuff, which is basically there to hold the line. It is very good. If you're stuck in a choke point and stuff, yeah, you're going to notice the need for this. You might notice that the spells are a bit low in terms of cost, but don't you worry, that's because they've got quite a long cooldown and the duration is so high, which means that you can't cast other spells. It kind of works in a very similar way to the Dwarf Rune Magic. So, the next one is Haunting, and this is a damage area effect spell, which also reduces leadership and vigor per second. It can affect up to 10 different entities, very good against multiple units, as you can imagine. Pretty strong, pretty strong. Again, multi-purpose, which is the absolute benefit to these types of spells. Being able to do multiple things at once means that their value has increased exponentially. And the final one, this is on the newer build, is Summon Spirits. This summons the Thing in the Woods and has a decent amount of charges. You'll be able to get a lot of use of this. I mean, summoning Thing in the Woods is very, very useful. It's a strong unit. It's there for 60 seconds, more or less. And yeah, I mean, no complaints there. The idea is being able to summon a very high tier unit, which like the normal Hags can do anyway, is quite strong. You can have quite a bit of summons up and running. So it's important to note that the spells themselves are not going to be extremely powerful. They're there to kind of be like minor damage and also kind of work like a debuff. I have been using it a decent amount of time since Venru started implementing it, so I could test it around a bit. And yeah, I like it. It's punch. It's an extra punch, better yet said, right? Not getting a lot of damage out there, but having the multiple effects does mean that you're going to be getting a whole 1-2 situation. You're doing a little bit of damage, but you're reducing their speed, reducing their healing or their leadership. It's a pretty interesting way on how to implement this lore, and I think that this is more or less how I envisioned it myself when I was thinking about the potential about getting the Lore of Hags officially. And yeah, you'll be able to play around with this lore today when it releases later this evening, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and let's start a bit of a discussion.